Hey guys, what is going on? URounder here, and it's time for some more 10 no limit 4 table action on our Run It Up Bankroll building series. So, the last video I put out, which I haven't put out yet, but is going to be one of me having a few drinks. I actually thought there might be a chance that I played pretty bad in that video, but after reviewing the first like 15-20 minutes of it, I think I just ran bad. No worries there. This must be a raise, so go ahead and c-bet. Yeah, what I'm thinking about is I've got a fairly good system, but I'm feeling like for micro stakes there might be an even simpler system that wouldn't necessarily make more money, but might be even more sort of blueprint-esque, you know, that might just be really straightforward and simple. But I'm going to play with it a little bit. Point is, we're still going the right direction on our overall bankroll. We did, I think we got up to 209, then we ran bad the last session. Now we're like 160 or something. So, yeah, like I said, I'm going to keep grinding the 10 no limit, 4 to 6 tables until we hit 300, and then we'll move right up to 20 no limit. I don't know if I'll be able to do that today, but hopefully. I actually am like really motivated now to run up the bankroll on global, because this is where I actually want to be playing. I really enjoy, like, now that I've gone back and forth between this and Ignition again, I really miss playing on global. I enjoy it a lot more. Ignition just has a lot of software issues, and the whole like signing up and getting on tables, like that whole system is just not great. And I think they could do it so much better. And I think if Global Poker implemented a system sort of like the system they have, I think it would be good, and I think they could do a better job of it because they're better at taking customer feedback. And honestly, like, if nothing else, I want to play on a site that listens to its customers and actually changes and adapts, in the way that, the majority of the customers want. I'm not really sure what's perfect here on the turn, but since we have so many draws possible, I think we want to keep betting. I know that, like, yeah, there's, that card connects with our opponent's ranges, but I still think it's correct to double barrel. This is a check back. We'll just merge way down here and bet like 87 cents. Man, I'm not good at doing a third of some of these. Something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'll pull up a calculator on the side so I can be a little bit more confident with my third size C-bets. This is a weird thing. You don't see this many min raises in the stakes I play. So trying to figure out what these min raises are. I mean, the min raise check appears really weak, but having any idea what these min raises are is kind of tough. So I guess we just need to see a bunch of them and figure it out that way. I mean, I guess we can make a note. Min raise, top pair, weak kicker. Put a little, I don't know if that's fishy or aggro, but it's a bizarre thing, right? I mean, that's not the right... It's essentially a polarization error. So somebody's taking a weak top pair hand and polarizing it more than it should be polarized. Yeah, I guess that's as straightforward as we can put it. What's tough is that, it creates a lot of confusion, and when you see players do things like that, you can either think that there may be some sort of either hidden genius to it, or you can expect players to do that at higher stakes, or think that that's like a regular play, when that's something that you just very rarely see. I might see something like that like once a day when I'm playing 400 no limit, if that. I may just not see it at all. But the fact that we're seeing it... Hold on. 55 cents. The fact that we're seeing it multiple times, especially like we're literally seeing it exactly right now again. Now, this time, because we've got third pair, I think it's a little bit safer to fold. But again, this is play that doesn't really make any sense. That it is there's a few reasons, right? I mean, with top pair, you want to be able to check call down with top pair on good runouts. And basically, by raising stuff like that, you're splitting your range in a spot that you don't want to split it. What the hell? This is happening like every hand. I don't know. I have no idea what it is. It's like people just don't. I'm on 3 different tables. We've seen 3 different players min raising flop C bets, and that is just not at all a standard play. And so I'm wondering if it's just a little micro, in this particular little group of player pools, like this has been done a lot, and so people think that there's some value to it. I mean, I guess it would take a lot of showdowns to try to figure out exactly what... I think we're a little bit too capped to fold here. Table 1. It would take a lot of showdowns and a lot of research, but I mean, basically, if players are doing that with hands that are strong enough to raise, they're probably not denying enough equity where they should. Like, here's one pre-flop. That's also pretty bad. We got a raise and a 3-bet. It's an min 3-bet. So they're not denying enough equity, and they're not getting enough value. And we can see what these little like min raises typically are, right? They're strong hands. And then if they're doing it with hands that are too weak, they're just getting themselves into really awkward spots on turn and rivers with bigger pots that they're probably going to make further mistakes on. So even if it can be a little frustrating if stuff like that happens to you a lot, excuse me, bet half pot because it's multi-way, then, I mean, it's just one of those things. You shouldn't get too stressed out about it, because it's, there's a very, very good chance that players are doing it incorrectly, because it's not used incorrect play, right? Like, it's not really a strategy that like solvers use or that is optimal. And so when you see players doing it, you don't have to stress too much about exactly how to play against it. You can play fairly straightforward against it, and just know that, whatever mistakes they're making, that is going to lead to bigger mistakes in the future. Because it can be kind of frustrating getting min raised every time. Like when it just happened to me, like almost 3 hands in a row, it's like, what is going on? This is annoying. But you got to kind of recenter and make sure you remind yourself that that's not good, and it's not going to really pay off for them in the long run. This guy just busted and got knocked out. This guy, who knows what he's gonna do. This guy, who knows, Point is that these are most likely not going to be players that we see that are like thriving and doing really well. Yeah, we have to call any pair on the flop. This is a really small bet, but I think our playability on the river is going to be bad. And there's so many cards that we'll like clearly have to fold on that a little more of an advanced concept. But on table 1 on that last hand, basically when we call the turn, he's going to be able to bluff like every single hand in his range, and there's not much we can do about it. And that means that our playability of that hand is really bad. So it makes more sense to just fold on the turn. Now, the reason we call that, you could say, well, doesn't that apply to the flop? It does in a certain light, but it doesn't, because players will frequently just bet the flop and then give up on the turn. Much more frequently than they'll bet the flop, bet the turn, and then give up on the river. And even when they do give up on the river, a lot of the times that will be with hands that are actually beating us, meaning they're betting twice correctly and then, checking because they don't want to overpolarize. If anybody's playing on Global Poker and they have a hand converter that's working, I can't seem to get a working hand converter right now. So I don't know if it's something that Global Poker has changed or the current hand converters that are out there just aren't working. But I've got one. I tried to just import my last 100 hands, and it's not working. And I'd really like to get one because I want to show you guys an actual like graph of this whole thing. I want to be able to say, hey, here's my little run it up series, show you guys the 10 no limit, the 20 no limit, the 50 no limit games that I've played this year, so you can actually see the win rates and everything else. There are a couple different hand converters out there, but for whatever reason, mine, I can't get them to work right now. So any feedback on that would be really helpful. So thanks if you can. And this is a donk. Yeah, it's tough to get out. Okay, now I'm not folding. I would guess this is a 9 most of the time. It's fairly unlikely that somebody just donks aces, but we could be wrong here. Yeah, so that's one of those spots where it's just very typical of players who are donk betting. It's not that it couldn't be correct sometimes. It's that it is not used very often in optimal play. Therefore, there's a high likelihood that the person donking doesn't really know what they're doing. And when people don't really know what they're doing, it's usually like not with value hands. I don't know. That's not a great way to explain that. I don't know. When players are donking, it's just a lot of garbage. So I wish I could explain it in a more eloquent way, but I can't. Small bet size here. Let's go ahead and do a little block bet, right? Because we can definitely get value here, And we can definitely fold to a raise multi-way. Yeah, so that'll get us a little value, and then it'll also make it so if like this guy jams all in multi-way, we can probably fold. We can fold. Not probably, we can fold, even though we got the second nut flush. Players don't jam the third or fourth nuts in multi-way pots, and if they do, we'll get them eventually. So yeah, like I said, I've got a new student that I talked to today that I'm going to take on as a sort of coaching for profit student, and yeah, we'll see how she does. But she's going to help me put together some YouTube videos, some good like content, some good stuff that we can use for teaching, and then hopefully, yeah, I'll be able to use a bunch of that content to put out on YouTube, and then some of it may become premium content in the future. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Basically, I think if I can bring up a player who's never played poker before to a 50 to 100 no limit winning player, then I've got a pretty good little toolkit, right? I feel like that should be enough to justify doing some serious coaching. Just like this Run It Up series, I think is good. It's a good indicator of, my ability to blast through these small stakes. I believe that taking a student that hasn't played before and taking them up through the stakes will have a similar effect. This is probably a call, right? Like we could that is much closer than some of the other like min raises and stuff that we've been talking about. Probably should have called that one. Just because we had some really good equity, we also had position, and it was a board that didn't have any broadways. So like it weights his range more towards, it polarizes his range more on that particular board. This should be a triple barrel, right? Especially on the 2, because now we beat, it's not really any 2 pairs that we beat. But we outkick like any other king, so like if he has king 8 or something like that, we have a better kicker. All right, so already we've, doubled up on 2 tables just about. Haven't really done anything terribly heroic. Sorry, there's like some sort of noise coming from across the room. I have no idea what it is. Yeah, so, I mean, if you're going to play these limits for a while, like min block, river, this is a good note to take, that this guy's like making a min block bet on the river with like fourth pair. Okay, that's pretty fishy. I mean, I get whatever. I didn't have a hand that was worthy of raising there, but I mean, if you know somebody does that, and if you see them do it once or twice, then you can start, abusing it. If they're completely unbalanced, which is almost, you can almost guarantee somebody that uses a min block bet on the river is doing it in an unbalanced way. So basically, what I mean by that is every time they do it, it's probably the same thing. They're probably not using that as a trap very often. They're probably just doing it to try to see a cheap showdown. And that means that when you have a draw that missed or something like that, you can probably raise and get them to fold their hand. And that's a really profitable read. If you can get a read like that on someone that you trust and you don't, abuse it, then you can make a lot of money from that. Again, like, this just doesn't matter that much. You're getting, 4-1 to call on the river after it's checked 3 streets, 2 streets, whatever it was. It's just not that interesting a spot. That was a pretty quick click back, so I'm just going to jam it in on this guy. Blind versus blind, I'm not that worried. That's unfortunate. Again, like, what's funny is, like, this guy's, like, doing this weird trapping thing with jacks. And, like, unless I'm a psychopath, okay, unless he, like, really has a read on me that, like, I'm a psycho and that I'm, like, doing that, there isn't really a lot of value in that play. Like, either I've got a good hand, right, and he's going to get it in with whatever equity he would have gotten it in with no matter what, or I don't, and he's basically like that limp re-raise is going to get like an extra 4 cents or something. Because like the limp re-raise is typically strong, but there's not, I'm not going anywhere with ace king suited blind versus blind. So I don't know, like that. You see a lot of little fancy plays like that, a little like kind of cutesy plays at micro stakes that you don't see at high stakes, and it's because there's not really a lot of value in doing those things. So I guess what I'm saying is just don't let yourself be fooled when you see people do like limp re-raises and it pays off and things like that. Like don't be fooled by that stuff. There's a reason that you don't see high stakes players doing it, and it's because it's not actually that good. So once we bet the flop on ace high, right, it would be probably over polarizing to bet the turn. So now we go into pretty much bluff catch mode, right? And that queen pairs, it's not great. Hard to imagine that he calls with like a 3. So I think by betting, we just open ourselves up to getting raised. So we should probably just check back. And this guy called the flop with like air. Which, yeah, I mean, that's pretty bad, right? You probably shouldn't call the flop with air. This guy's doing this like min bet thing. I'm tempted to just raise here, but we have so little equity and we have an ace that we could actually show down the best hand if he gives up. It's, I don't know, it's close. So now to me, this looks like one of two things. It's either he has like a very small pair, like a pair of 8s, or he has a draw that he wants to, get paid with. Now, obviously, he's now overbetting the river on the queen. So now it's like he probably just had a queen and was like betting small because he didn't know what else to do. If he had made like another min bet, I was probably going to raise the river. So there's some weird, like, It's not more difficult, but I could see why it becomes a little bit like more complicated. Most of the stuff when you're playing mid stakes is fairly routine, and it's just who's balancing their ranges better, who is not, tilting, things like that. Like if you're not tilting, if you're balancing your range as well, if you are, just a little bit more range aware than your opponent, you'll eke out your win rate. Whereas like down here, there's like really bizarre stuff happening that doesn't line up with any kind of like theory-based play, and it's a lot more like, it feels like you're guessing a lot more. You're in the dark a lot more. But I would say like, try not to stress about it. Try not to let that get inside your head, because what it comes down to is if you just play strong quality hands, then your opponents doing all this sort of like fancy weird stuff are going to get themselves into trouble. And you kind of want to be the casino. This is like the whole like, you just want to be consistent, play your game, play strong hands, play value, and let your opponents make mistakes against you. And that's all it should take. Seems like it would be a polarization error to bet a jack again here. And although we do have an anti-blocker, I guess this is a triple offline. He's betting half pot here on the river. I think he just doesn't have a lot of bluff allowance. I think he can just be overshooting his bluff allowance too much here. I don't know. We'll see. Wow. Okay, that's pretty thin. I guess that's a really good line against me. I honestly didn't think he'd be betting with a jack there. I mean, honestly, like, there's a lot of jacks in my range. Maybe, so like, I actually think it's basically a mistake to bet a jack there, and so I didn't expect him to be doing it. That is probably not a great way to think about the game at 10 no limit. This might be a little thin as well. Not sure that this guy's really fishy yet, but I'm also not going to give him an orange tag. I mentioned in one of the other videos, like, you definitely don't have to raise every pair. I mean, in the cutoff, it's getting pretty close, but I found that pairs are kind of a mixed strategy, so it's not something that you absolutely have to do. So if you want to just go ahead and fold, like, anything below fives, then, no problem. You can probably go ahead and do that. Again, we're getting this like weird min raise thing. I'm just going to call. This is where this like can get somebody into trouble. We'll see if it actually does. But obviously, like, there's nothing we're going to do about, right? So this is like this thing is, I don't know what it is, but players min raise weak top pair flop. I don't know why guys do this, but we'll see if that note sticks or not. But I guess that's the read that we should go with, right? We've seen 2 showdowns with that. That's sort of what it seems like. They're like, oh, I've got top pair. I don't really understand how to play. And I think in general, they probably get uncomfortable on turns and rivers. And so they just think, well, I'm usually ahead here, so I'll just raise. Now, I'm not going to try to completely get inside the head of somebody that's making an incorrect play, but I would imagine that must be the type of justification. I actually had a lesson with my coach yesterday, and he was mentioning something about, he was like, it would shock you to hear the logic that I've heard students, give. Basically saying like, when you talk to students and you're like, okay, like what's going through your head when you make this play, and then they explain their thought process, it can be shocking, like how absurd it sounds. So when we see plays that don't make any sense to us, we shouldn't be too surprised, and we shouldn't try to figure out, what's going on. We can just sort of note that there's something off about what they're doing or how they're thinking. So we'll do a bet check bet line here. It's a little bit less attractive when we hold an ace, but I still think we're gonna want to take it. Because sometimes we could just check back and win with the ace. Maybe we should size up more there. I'm not sure if this guy's ever folding a pair, but it's a totally standard line, not a problem. I must have ISO'd here. I'm just going to size up a little bit. Not terribly worried. I've got the ace of diamonds, top pair, top kicker. Probably a good spot for a check raise. Something like that looks good. What's half pot? Yeah, we'll do like 2.1. We'll just check call here. I guess this is, I mean, it might. Honestly, this could be a pretty smooth fold. I mean, we've got top pair, top kicker, plus top pair, second kicker, plus an open-ended straight draw against a short stack. So, no, we're not going to actually fold. But if he was deeper, this would be a pretty smooth spot for a fold because he could definitely be I'm a little surprised he called the check raise there with ace queen, but I was expecting to see sets kings, aces, or ace king. I wasn't really expecting ace queen. But again, top pair, second kicker, plus an open-ended straight draw against a guy who started with half a stack, I don't think we can fold against. And I think if he was deeper, it would be a really cool spot for a fold, but not there. This is something I wouldn't normally do. I would normally like 3-bet or fold, and 5s I would normally just fold. But again, I know that so many other players are going to come along that I think it turns 5s into a pretty profitable call in a pool where 3-betting is so infrequent. And that's the big difference is like if players aren't 3-betting a lot, all of a sudden it becomes a lot better to call on the button. The reason I never call on the button, I really don't. I don't call on the button at 200 no limit and up, is because you're going to get squeezed and 3-bet so often that it crushes all of your equity. And basically, yeah, because of that, I don't do it. Damn. It's like the second to worst card in the deck. And there's the following worst card in the deck. So, I mean, again, there's that 10-cent block bet on the river. So there's certain plays that just, it's almost like live poker. Like in live poker, you have a few things like the snap check. Like guys will, like the flop will come down and then people will instantly check. Like, and sometimes they'll do that like when they have a set. You know, they'll like just like snap check really fast when they hit a set for whatever reason, right? To try to appear weak or to try to appear like that's what they were planning on doing and it doesn't matter what the flop was or whatever the case. But it's like these little like finicky little tricks, like, and the min block bet and the min raise are both examples of just this kind of little weird chintzy, like I don't know how to explain it, but stuff that sort of works in these environments that doesn't happen in higher environments because it's very, very difficult to balance stuff like that, and people start to take advantage of it. Same thing here, this like min bet thing. Yeah, we got a backdoor flush draw, so now we can call. Occasionally, that's going to lead to, you know, getting a good turn. Same thing here. So, yeah, so like this guy who, you know, that should actually have been a bet on the river. That's my bad. I was thinking about this table over here. Yuck. This would be like a big forced aggression mistake to jam here. So yeah, basically this guy just like min bets weak hands. So that's a fairly, you can see why this wouldn't work for like a long period of time. Like as soon as I start getting notes on some of these players and what they're doing, like I'll be able to shift into like a hard exploit mode and just take a lot of pots off of them. Or, you know, if I get a tell that something, you know, basically they're trying to use these little tricks that are not at all balanced, and they'll work a couple times, but as soon as somebody picks up on what they're doing, it will be impossible for that player to beat. You know, it'll be impossible for somebody to beat me once I've picked up on these indicators that they're using, on these mistakes. So again, it's like one of those things where you see somebody do it and it works, and you're like, oh cool, I'm gonna try that, and then it works a couple times, and then all of a sudden it stops working, and you probably can't figure out exactly what's going wrong or why you're losing, but that's why, because you started with a strategy that wasn't correct, that was unbalanced, and all of a sudden it starts falling apart, which is why you don't see it at higher limits. I'm glad that I decided to go with hour-long videos. I think like 15 or 20-minute videos would be less valuable, because you might just see some of these like little like cheap plays work, and you wouldn't see the overall effect of like the game. Like if I play for 2 or 3 hours against these same types of players, I mean, I don't know, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 times that I play a 3-hour session, I bet it could be as high as 8 or 9 out of 10. If I played 3-hour sessions, I would say, 80% of those would be winning sessions, which is ridiculous, right? That's like crazy high. Like at even 200 no limit, I might win 55 or 60% of sessions, like if that. I might even win like 52%, but the winning sessions are larger winnings than the losing sessions are losing. It's just much, much closer. This must be a limp pot, so I'll just make it 30. I guess we could check this back, but what the heck? Why worry about it? Yeah, this is a weird one. I guess we'll just check here. Seems like a polarization mistake to bet again. Yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing on table 2. I don't know what this guy's possibly calling with. So he like pots it now. He's a min river bet to block, so that's suspicious, right? Now we have 2 pair, which is good. So now if he has like, 7-8, not good, but I guess if he has like 8-6, we have him beat. So let's just see what he does. Yeah, so this is an easy fold. So again, somebody who uses a min bet to block the river that is on the next hand potting it is almost certainly, not bluffing. Like maybe, right? Like maybe they are bluffing, but it seems inconsistent with the read we have on them. That, the min bet is sort of, to me, it feels like a little bit insecure. Like I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing. So somebody who's like, not really sure, not really confident that they can bluff catch correctly if they check, and therefore they want to like make it easier by trying to like bet out. That type of person is probably only like going pot when they're confident and when they know what the correct answer is. That's just my overall read of the situation. And so that's what makes folding to, pot turn, pot river bet really easy. even though I have top pair, top kicker. Look at all these limps. Normally this is like aces when somebody limp re-raises, but because it's like a limp re-min raise, I'm not folding. If it was from the under the gun raiser, I would, but not from the guy who called behind, like limped behind and then re-raised. I'm just going to check down. But in general, like the limp re-raises aces and kings most of the time. Maybe some queens. See, pocket twos in this case. So yeah, I mean, if we look, we got in against ace nine, jack queen, and pocket twos with ace jack. That's pretty good. It doesn't get much better than that. We are going to keep ISOing these guys. This guy that just jammed twos, I guess we can call with fives. See how that goes. I would guess his range is like, I don't know, ace 10 offsuit and any pocket pair. So fives does okay with that with a little bit of dead money in there. Boom. It's going to be tough for him to come back from that. All right. Oop, what is that? Nice thing about not being like stressed out about the money too is that you can play a little bit more of a high variance style. And I think if we look at if I could ever get my hands to import so we can look at them, I don't care about looking at other people's strategies or styles or anything. I just want to look at my own hands. I think we'll see that we're doing really well EV wise. And, that's all you can do. So if I can show that, I'm crushing EV-wise, then I'm pretty happy. So again, now this guy is like potting, so we should be really suspicious when he all of a sudden starts potting after he was betting really small with weak hands. So, yeah, I mean, now he's overbet jamming. So he probably has ace 5, ace 6, or 2 pair plus. So I'm just going to fold my top pair. Just like, you can save yourself so much money in spots like that where, these guys are playing so transparent. And what'll happen, and this has happened to me, is you'll see somebody do that and you'll be like, oh my God, like, God, this guy probably has it. He's playing so transparently, but I can't fold my top pair. And then you call and he has you beat and you're like, oh God, he sucks. He's playing so obvious. But then you didn't get yourself to actually fold. And so even though he was playing transparently and even though he was like playing kind of poorly and really unbalanced, you still paid him off. And that's the big difference. Is actually being able to identify where somebody is doing something poor and not pay them off. So that went from somebody betting like 1/4 pot or 1/5 pot or something to somebody betting half pot. And again, that's just a typical, you see somebody bet weak on the previous street and then they increase their size on the next street. All of a sudden, the likelihood that they're bluffing goes way down. And it's just much more heavily weighted towards value. So I'm not sure how many hands it'll actually take me to get up to a $300 bankroll playing 10 no limit, but I'm guessing it'll be like 5 to 10,000. So that should be a pretty cool little sample size to be able to show you guys, you know, how I do EV wise over like 10K hands. And then I'll have a student that's coming up through these limits as well, and we'll see, you know, we can also kind of see how she does at these limits, and that'll give a good idea of what's possible for win right here. Let's check our chart for this one. Ace-9 off is a call. Little nut flush flopped here on table 3. That's cool. We get a donk bet. We're obviously just going to flat call. This should have been a check. Now that we're on the turn, we'll go ahead and bet. This is a call, clearly. This is a call. All very, very simple. Not a fantastic river, but not a river I'm going to fold either. I mean, we're running pretty bad. There's really not much we can do on some of these. I mean, trust me, we're not supposed to be folding the nut flush there. Like, I promise. Quite confident of that. Uh-oh, more time. So I'm sorry that I'm getting distracted a little bit because I'm looking for, like right now I'm looking on 2+2 and I'm trying to scour the forums to see if there's a can converter or anything available. We're in position here with 6s, so I think we're okay to call. Okay to call here. I don't know, we missed a bet here, it looks like. This should be a half pot bet if I recall. Although the check there is super suspicious on a 3-bet pot, so he might just have ace king and be trapping. That's what it feels like, but we'll see. Queens, okay, that makes sense too. That's fine. I think we both played that one okay. All right, so we've been going for 61 minutes. I guess I started the video a little bit prior to Yeah, I started playing prior to the video starting. Yeah, I guess it's good to, again, obviously, like, we can't fold here, right? I mean, unless he's, like, betting double the pot, we're not folding in a spot like this. But, we expect that he basically has a really strong hand in this spot. So there's only so much we can do. The cool thing is that, like, when we actually hit our hand there's no way he's getting away from it. So whatever his hand strength is in a spot like that, we're getting paid when we hit our 8 outs, or maybe even more if he's doing it with top pair. I'd like to sort of see. I'd like to get a showdown with him on some of those bets so we can actually confirm. But hasn't happened yet. I will say so far, like, I think these videos are good. I haven't seen too many. Let me check here. Let me see if we have any comments on the new one that I posted. Got a couple thumbs up on episode 2. Let me go to the actual page here. Make sure I put my thumbs up on there too. No comments yet, but definitely got some good comments on the first one. So I'm going to see how the response is. But if the response is good, I might just start recording more of these. Again, I also don't know if people care about me, playing for a couple hours on my own to try to grind it up, or if they really want to see, right, like, is it more interesting, and leave this in the comments if you're still watching, but is it more interesting to see just the fact that it happened and the results from it, or is it really cool to actually see each session, as it happened, if that makes sense, right? Like, so... Yeah, this should be this is the guy that called last time, I think, but let's see if the bet check bet line works any better now. This is a standard, again, this is a fairly standard line, the bet check bet against the blinds. Okay, so we can just... I'm just going to make a note that this guy's a station versus bet check bet, because that's like real light. So he's pretty much just calling any pair versus any bet in the bet check bet line. Sit in. So those are good notes to have. We missed the flop bet. Now we're kind of in the wilderness, just sort of making stuff up as we go on table 1. So I'm definitely going to classify this as a pretty... this is a rough session of run bad. Like, that's for sure what's going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break, grab some water, then fire up another session, and I'll just record another session, another hour, and we'll see how we, where we're at after the end of a couple hours of recording. The 3-bet check line is always really suspicious. It's also like I'm not betting when ace king just hit. I mean, people always, like, in live games say, like, oh, this guy 3-bet, he has ace king. Well, that's not obviously true, but ace king still is a really big part of people's ranges. So, like, right here, this guy's overbetting the pot on the river after checking the turn. Like... It's really hard not to think that a huge part of his range is ace king. I probably should have called just to show, like, what's going on there, but I timed out because I've been talking a lot, and apparently my time bank's all used up. But again, we've got somebody overbetting after checking back the turn, which is fairly typical of, unless he's a really good player and recognizing that my range is capped, then it looks like it's just somebody who had ace king. And I know that sounds kind of narrow to range somebody down to 2 cards, but it's either that or the guy's a really strong thinking player at 10 no limit. So you tell me which sounds more likely. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead, sit out my blinds, and take a break, come back to it, and we'll stay after it. This is a check. Okay, I guess that's a fold. Oh, that's multi-way, so yeah, good fold. Yeah, gotta watch out for the time bank. Definitely an hour is about as much as I can play before my time bank is completely shot. This is probably close. On table 3, yeah. So 6-7 got there. Damn, we are just tough breaks. I think we saved a decent amount of money, though, in a lot of these hands. Like, a lot of these hands could have gone a lot worse. Okay, well, we accidentally didn't sit out of this one. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'll see you in the next video. Hope you enjoyed it. Excuse me.